From the Zimmer Radio Network headquarters, it's your morning addiction.
Fraud is exactly what happens when you've got a government that is not fighting for the American people.
Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
This is by far the most difficult moment I've had as an elected official.
The Zimmer News Team.
I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy. They've been saying, what's going on with Cuba?
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
Overnight, the United States conducted airstrikes against southern Iran near the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM says these strikes were defensive in nature and went after mine-laying vessels along with a surface-to-air missile position. These were the first U.S. strikes that have targeted Iran since early May. A spokesperson for Iran's armed forces said any new aggression will be met with a far more severe response.
Well, there you go. Friday afternoon going into the Memorial Day weekend, we thought, holy cow, the price of oil's coming down. There's a memorandum of understanding on Saturday that everyone's talking about. And then the mine-laying ships are bombed and the missile launchers positions, and it seems like we're back to square one. Welcome into Wake Up Missouri on this post-holiday weekend edition. Hope everyone had a great, safe, and not too sunburnt of a weekend. Stephanie Bell, did you get sunburnt? You doing okay? Doesn't look like no.
Yeah,
a little bit.
It's pretty bad.
Maybe so. Yeah, I think so. Is that because the sunscreen didn't work, or it got splashed off in the water frolicking?
Oh, a little bit of both.
Okay.
Who says the word frolicking, Randy?
Huh?
It's the big 2-6, man. We gotta
like
drop
the word
some of the
frolic.
old thing.
You don't like the word frolic?
No, I'm gonna teach you some slang in the coming months. You're gonna be hip.
John, I don't see any sunburn on you. You doing okay? You have a good weekend? Yeah.
Well, I
John
tried
Marsh.
to take care of it, but doing the mowing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Oh, the smell of fresh mown grass. It's a beautiful
Sick
thing.
of it.
It's a good thing. And Mr. Drake, your Knicks are in the finals, right?
Don't say your Knicks. I do not claim
I thought
them.
you said they're a great
I'm
team.
excited about it. I do not claim
Oh, you were
them.
just in here talking. You were just like a kid in a candy shop. The
That'd
Knicks
be like if the Jets made the Super Bowl. It's like I don't root for the Jets personally.
I see.
But it's something that's happening.
You recognize a great team.
Yes.
They're a great team this year.
Yes.
Well, New York has to have something going for them when they have Mamdani as their other.
They got Jackson. Okay, did you see this? Jackson Dart, the quarterback for the Giants, introduced Trump at a rally.
Yes, that
was stunning.
When was that? Friday, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, I think Friday.
Oh, yeah, that was Friday.
Yeah. So Jackson Dart is he the quarterback for who?
Oh, he's a stud. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks. New York Giants.
For the Giants.
Who?
The hapless Giants.
No, they are winning a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. I can guarantee it.
Well,
Abdul Carter's pretty tough.
In surveying the landscape of yesterday's sound clips, there was something that caught my attention, and I'm going to ask everyone to indulge me. Now that everyone is still digesting their hot dogs and, coming out of that, what did you call it? The paranoid phase of the marijuana. You used that term one day, the paranoid phase. You said that once. You said that once about that. But here is 101-year-old World War II veteran Don Graves at the National Memorial Parade. It was something to behold.
I consider this a great privilege to stand here and sing about my nation.
101 years old. He was the last surviving flamethrower operator.
It'll serve you right. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean, wide before. God bless America, our home, sweet home. God bless America, our home, sweet
101 years old, standing there in the middle of the street in D.C., and I mean, the guy belted it out. He's spry as can be. 101 years old. He fought on Iwo Jima with a flamethrower. Think that through. He loves his country. He made some other really salient remarks, and it really touched my heart to see this guy doing that. I mean, boy, he unabashed about his love of this country. A little later, we're going to talk about what does patriotism mean these days. There's some thoughts when they interviewed young folks, and it's changing in what is the upcoming electoral. I don't know if they're an electoral majority, but certainly an electoral powerhouse coming up. So that in the same breath that we see, Friday afternoon, the Gov put 4 issues on the ballot. Right, Stephanie? Was it?
That feels like an eternity ago.
I know, but it was Friday afternoon.
Does, doesn't it?
And Governor Kehoe put 4 issues on the ballot. Interesting. Of course, the abortion, the 2026 version of Amendment 3 will go to voters in November, but alongside the referendum on the Missouri gerrymander map will be in November. But
don't call it. It's not a gerrymandered map. The court said it's compact.
Yeah, the gerrymandered map
You're reading
that the court approved.
The headline out of the Missouri Not Independent.
Well, but I think it's fair to say that everyone's gerrymandering these days, and the Republicans are seeing their gerrymander and raising them a gerrymander. So they're going to mander the Democrats' jerry. That's what I'm saying. So the income tax initiative will be on the ballot in August, correct?
Yes.
The IP reforms will be on the ballot in August. There's a sales tax thing, right? Kind of sales
for state parks and soil conservation.
Parks tax. That's sort of extending an existing tax, right? And then what's the other one? There's another one.
Amendment 3 returns in November.
Yeah,
the abortion question.
You did them out of order. So 1 is the parks and soils conservation tax. 2 is direct election of county assessors.
Yes.
4 is
direct election.
The changing the threshold for constitutional amendments proposed by initiative. 5 is the income tax.
So let's break that down.
The secretary has to certify the signatures for
once the secretary certifies the signatures, there's enough to meet the muster out of 300 that were submitted.
Issue a certificate of sufficiency or insufficiency.
Yeah. Well, he'll probably do that. And then if that happens, that'll be on the ballot in November, along with the initiative petition. No,
abortion.
The abortion thing. So the big one, interesting, the abortion one is the one that I thought might get a better play in August, because that's when historically, don't more conservative voters come out, potentially, or smaller turnout, which is thought maybe to be an advantage for the new Amendment 3? No?
I think if you, historically, you might have said that, but with, in Trump's party and Trump's world, it's been really hard to predict, as we've seen in polling, not only locally, regionally, nationwide. The polling, which kind of is based on historical data, sometimes is not been very accurate. And so I think, I think in the past we thought things like early voting were really a turnout for the Democrat machine, and what we're seeing is more and more conservatives are adopting early voting. And in the past, I think we were really likely to get, from a turnout perspective, Democrats were the ones that were kind of not always turning out to the polls, and now we have to work harder, I think, to turn out our conservative base, especially on issue campaigns. So I think, I don't know there's a lot of different factors, I think, that go into these decisions. But I think it's getting harder and harder to definitively say, the primary is going to definitely turn out all of our Republican voters, and the general isn't. It's tough.
Turnout in Republican
I wouldn't want to
been
be in
big
that,
across the nation.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be in that business right now, because I think it'd be real tough.
Now, this initiative petition thing is interesting because now, if this is passed, it would. What does that mean? That means that a majority of voters in each congressional district would have to pass it, right, for an amendment to pass?
You would have to, I'm going to read off the official ballot title, modify the current requirements that a statewide majority of voters may approve initiative petitions to amend the Constitution. The second bullet is require a majority of voters in each congressional district to approve the initiative petition to amend the Constitution. That's the provision you were talking about.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And then make available to each voter the full text of initiative petitions with their ballot.
So that would just be very transparent about the clear language of the ballot, which is of the amendment, which is put the amendment on the ballot. It's right there for everyone to read. No?
If you're interested, the Secretary of State keeps a really helpful website. You can go to sos.mo.gov. You click on elections and voting, and then you go to initiative and referendum petitions. You can click 2026 ballot measures, and there you can see both the full, well, you can see all of it. You can see the full text of the measure. You can see the official ballot title. You can also see the fair ballot language for each of these.
10-year extension on 0.1% sale. This is not going to be a good cycle given the gas prices and the spin-off retail and other prices that we're paying because of gasoline. I would maintain, unless things really turn around quickly when and if the straits are reopened.
Well, I think the voting public out there, has had a lot of questions heading into Friday. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I had this very discussion with a younger gentleman who happens to be the son of Stephanie's law partner, and we were talking after the Jefferson City Memorial Day thing, and he had the same questions about what's on what ballot, and he's a pretty informed young guy.
Yeah. Well, have a chance to do the initiative petition thing.
The Constitution mandates that we vote on the Parks and Soils tax every 10 years.
And the tax thing, those are the two highlights on the August ballot. And then, should the signatures be certified for the redistricting, that would be on the November, along with Amendment 3. So, all right, well, the governor's made it clear. I wonder if he's going to really lobby heavy for one or more of these things. I think he probably will for the income tax, for sure. I don't know about that. Maybe we can try to get him on soon. Daily DC Rundown, straight ahead. Stay tuned.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
strikes in southern Iran over the holiday weekend. A CENTCOM spokesperson says targets include missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to lay out mines. The strikes were described as very small. President Trump, meanwhile, marked Memorial Day by honoring.
Well, there you go. Back at it. Stephanie, what's the story in Iran? It's the Daily DC Rundown.
A lot of questions remain. President Trump says negotiations are proceeding nicely. They're meeting to hammer out what could become a major ceasefire economic agreement. We are now entering month 3 of this conflict. We've heard about a framework, not a lot of details, but we're hoping this would end the fighting between the U.S. and Iran, gradually reopen the Strait of Hormuz, remove Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, and maybe have some lift some sanctions and unfreeze Iranian assets. But Iran is saying this is just a preliminary framework. Of course, we were dropping missiles last night, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting. Iran saying it's not a full nuclear agreement. Reportedly, there were U.S. strikes last night. Israel launched new attacks into Lebanon against Hezbollah. And Iran continues basically tying any broader peace agreement to ending the Israel-Hezbollah fighting. So we are now hovering around $4.50 for the national average of gas prices. I think I saw like $4.20 in Ashland this morning. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like Missouri is a little bit insulated from the really high gas prices you hear about, but not so much right now. It's everywhere. And, it's going to take a bit, even if we do come to a peace deal, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And that's really what's driving up these fuel costs.
Apparently what started all this was the more mine laying going on in the Straits. Crazy, huh? I mean, I thought we were sort of through that. Yeah.
It's rough. And of course, there's some people in Trump's world who are saying even the details we know so far about the framework is not good enough, that cannot be how we end this conflict. So that is really tough. Today, President Donald Trump will be at Walter Reed Medical Center for his physical. He's going to also greet service members and staff while there. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in India and Armenia today, while Vice President J.D. Vance is hosting Republican attorneys general at the White House to talk about fraud. He's really all over that. That's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're finding that in not just blue states, but red states, too. I heard, Ohio they've looked at. Now I hear the latest thing is Montana. I heard this morning coming in, yeah.
All right. Well, we are also watching Texas. Texas is having this runoff election, and we're watching the Trump endorsement again. He's batting 1,000 right now, I'm pretty sure. Well, I guess he didn't win one of the ones in Indiana, but he's winning a lot. So this is where Senator John Cornyn faces Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Trump issued a last-minute endorsement of Paxton, and so we're going to continue to watch the Trump effect. Meanwhile, we saw Massey ousted, last week, 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. And he is kind of teasing a political comeback already. You think he's going to re-enter politics?
Ahead of that election, he said if he lost, he wasn't going to ever run for office again, and now he's teasing running for president in 28.
We'll see. And also, we are watching the ballroom craziness still. An armed man was killed after exchanging gunfire with a Secret Service agent Saturday. Renewed calls for a secure facility at the White House that is also a ballroom is under discussion.
Your chatbot has a long memory. Not a good thing. That coming up. Well, you know, as a technological revolution matures and evolves, there's always some fits and starts, and there just seems like one story after another about the fits and starts of AI. It's fun to watch, and I think we've all experienced it. I don't know if you experienced it over the weekend. Maybe you were doing some home fix-up, or you were looking for some super Google type functioning of AI. That's what I use it for. It's just super Google for me mostly. I'm not into the Stephanie Bell yet. Put something in there and it comes out with a spreadsheet of every loaf of bread you bought since 2000. Good for you. That's good. It takes extra AI expertise to manage that.
No, they have services for that.
They have services for that.
I was about to say, isn't like you pointed out the one thing in Stephanie's life that I don't think uses AI. Does your budgeting app use AI?
I don't think so. I've had it long before that because I've been using it for
I'm just
15
kidding you, but
years.
I mean, you use it for very advanced functions like that, and many people do. I've heard about all those kind of things. It's pretty cool. But I don't know if you've had this happen, but maybe I've learned one way around this, but have you had where whatever chatbot you're using remembers either outdated information or irrelevant information or
hallucinates.
Or it hallucinates and it inserts it into a discussion that's like, I don't know, you're putting in, sometimes I'm, when I'm at Strawberry Hills or wherever I'm shopping for plants, I'm like, I post a picture of a plant and I'm like, would this go good in my landscape where it gets sun most of the day, but I can't water it all, and it says, oh, this is drought tolerant, blah, blah, blah. But then it'll say, it'd be really nice for your son's birthday coming up in August. Like, it remembers weird things. So one of the, I think that I learned early on that's when you continue a thread but change topics. Can't do that. You have to start a new conversation, right?
Yes.
But
it's trying to help you.
This one guy, trying too hard sometimes, Brian Del Rosario, a software engineer and a part-time council member in Utah, would reveal that he had a spouse and 3 children. Then after he and his wife separated, according to the Wall Street Journal, he had to mention it to the chatbot so it wouldn't include his wife when planning a future trip. But once he did, the chatbot launched into divorce talk. Hey, let me help you with that. So sometimes it's sort of like people that, sort of want to give advice when it's unasked for, right?
But again, I mean, it's built by humans, so it's going to do like human-like things. So again, if you and I are having a human interaction and you're telling me about how your son's birthday is coming up and like you're thinking about getting him gifts, and then you, squirrel, start talking to me about a plant, I'm going to be like, well, that plant, that's a weird gift for your son for his birthday. Like, why would you get him a plant? And you're like, oh, I'm not talking about plants. I've moved on. But you didn't identify for me, even in a real human interaction, that we had changed subjects completely.
I rarely do that.
I was about to say, have you ever talked to Randy Tobler in person?
Yes, this is why I'm saying it's easy that you could confuse a chatbot.
Look, a bunny.
One of my daughter Shannon's favorite phrases, and Sammy, is, Dad, that's so random. Well, how come you're not reading my mind like I'm thinking?
Also, another crazy point.
Yep.
You're bringing up to your chatbot, not one, what should I get my son for his birthday, but 2, you're doing it so far out that it's for August and it's May now.
Now, you can, this defense of AI, despite the facts that even the AI makers, Google, acknowledged a version of this problem in a blog about its personal intelligence feature. Others, OpenAI has talked about it. Now, Anthropic and Microsoft Copilot have added what Google's Gemini did, and that is they've all added this memory. It remembers what you have told it and uses that to shape future responses. But now, apparently, you can modify some of this now. They're beginning to nuance it a little bit. Has anyone else had this problem at all where suddenly it's talking about something that's off the table? You're done with it. I know.
It does that all the time.
I know
that's
how
why
much.
We go back to the fact check. Fact check.
I know how much copper to put in my lake and how to dilute it in my 15-gallon sprayer to kill my algae. Thank you very much. I don't need it when I'm asking a question about, how's the weather been? What's the rainfall this year?
I think you can probably clear your chat history, but I think overall it's probably helpful. And I think just a simple sentence like, I'm done with my copper project, or I've got my son a birthday gift, Like, you can tell it, hey, this is done. But if you don't say this is done, then it doesn't know.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to defend Randy here. I will never text ChatGPT after I finish something that it 100% helped me with and say, okay, I'm done with this. What should I do now? Like, how do you naturally say
that guy should have been like, okay, I'm done with that, wife. Right?
Yeah.
Well, what I don't know.
That would have been
Again, at my very microscopic, very rudimentary use of this, it seems as though when I got into trouble with that, to be honest with you, I was piling on new stuff in an old thread, and I just because it was convenient. You need to push that new conversation button, start over. I think I don't.
I think we could post your chat thread online, and people would have a heyday.
Wait, are you saying that you've only used one chat
the whole time?
The whole time?
No. There was a time when I had a rolling chat. But you would think,
oh no!
But if I had a conversation with Drake, like I walked in this morning, I said, Drake, what's this bag of croutons you're eating? An interesting snack.
And now we got to bring up the croutons.
Okay.
I can't get away with anything.
I think it's fantastic.
GD
Good for
studio.
You. New chat. But okay, so we had that discussion. Then we moved on to a discussion about who are the guests this morning. Evan Brown is on at 8:00 to talk about Iran. Well, you clearly knew in that human-to-human interaction, I was no longer, you wouldn't have said, yeah, and I bet Evan likes croutons when he snacks in the morning. You wouldn't have gone there. You knew that we were on to a different conversation.
What are you talking about right now, Randy?
Also, can we go back to the croutons for a minute? Because Drake rolled into for breakfast.
Kind of piqued my interest a little bit.
With a bag of croutons that he says he eats like basically Cheetos, like cheese balls. He just eats the croutons straight out of the bag. I have never heard of this in my entire life.
Does he have some Caesar dressing to dip him in as he goes?
I mean, the number of carbohydrates, like I can't. Are they seasoned? Do you have a specific flavor? Oh my gosh, he's eating them right now. Like dry cereal.
There he is.
Just croutons straight out of the bag. Aren't those kind of expensive too?
I don't know. Speaking of
I'm sure
binge
chips are
snacking.
cheaper.
Sorry, I need to digest these. No, they're like cheaper than normal bags of chips. They're awesome.
Speaking of binge snacking, Helene found a half-eaten tin. You know those big tins where you get like 800 of these little Danish butter cookies you can buy at the exclusive membership club around Christmas.
Yeah,
I bought
sure.
a couple of those just to have around if we're having coffee with people when they're over, after dinner, whatever. They're good to snack on.
They freeze well, right?
Yeah, and the little ones, they got the little sprinkles of salt, and they have different flavors, different textures, but they're all sort of just butter cookies. She brought a half tin of those to the farm, and I don't know, I got hot in my bee suit working with the bees, and man, I got a beehive that's going crazy. I haven't really checked it for over a year. Maybe benign neglect is the best thing for beehives. I don't know. At any rate, I got hot. I came in, I hammered those things. I was just like, they were like cheese balls, except they were little cookies. Bad news. Shouldn't have done that.
I cannot.
Well, but I hadn't eaten lunch. When you don't eat lunch and the snacking is around, that's the vulnerable time.
Does anyone on the show eat any protein?
All day. Well, yeah, all that, but you can have your snacks too and your protein. So that's occasionally that happens, but we talk about how that's not a good thing. I know that, but probably better than croutons. Well, I don't know if it's better than croutons. What flavor croutons are you eating this morning?
Texas toast.
Oh, that means buttery, huh? Thank God they're not garlic.
I am not I don't consider myself a super healthy person, but for as much as you talk about health, I feel like I'm probably the healthiest eater on this show.
Well, you might be obsessive about it. I'm not obsessive about it. We're mindful of our eating, generally eat well, but you can have a little indulgence now and then. What's wrong with that? Little indulgence, if you're eating well 95% of the time and you have a little indulgence, that's fine. Now, wait a minute, Stephanie Bell. You've talked about some indulgences you like.
And when you're 20-something, if you want to eat a bag of
yeah, you can get away with
bag of goodies, go for it.
A bag of goodies would be like cheese balls or chips or something that's meant to be eaten like a snack item. I've never looked at a bag of croutons and thought, what happens if I just sit here and eat a whole bag of croutons?
That's a deconstructed Caesar salad he's working on this morning. Later, he'll have some lettuce and little
There was-
Parmesan on the side.
No, his salad is consisting of. He also has a can of Pringles, so he's eating croutons with a side of Pringles.
Now,
oh my gosh!
You didn't give credit when I talked about the Dots pretzels, and a serving is 13 pretzels, and I measure those out. So if you're doing that, if you have Dots,
Yeah, but I don't eat Dots. I eat 0. So measure your pretzels all you want, but I choose not to eat that.
Well, there you go.
They taste pretty good. Listeners, I recommend.
I
Give it a
will
try.
say we did get, we have a whole bunch of packs of veggie straws, and the kids were totally annihilating them this weekend.
Yeah.
And those are healthier than chips or Cheetos, I think. Come on.
Veggie straws. They're
It's like
highly
air.
processed.
It's like popcorn.
Yeah, they're highly processed, salty, oily, pureed mash of something, and then they bake it.
They're basically Cheetos, no matter what you want to say.
Without the orange dust, though, that's what makes Cheetos so good.
All right. Well, now there you go. I think I probably reflect the eating habits of a lot of people these days. With Maha movement, we talk about things every day on the program. In the office, we talk about, hey, it's a work in progress, right? I don't know. Unless you move to a commune and eat seaweed and kelp and fish,
cauliflower steaks,
fish all day.
Yeah. Randy, I think you eat a whole lot healthier than the average person. You really do.
Eat super healthy, and then once in a while I have a little snack. But
when Helene is watching.
Yep.
Yeah, even when she isn't. You'd be surprised.
Do you think Helene has her own little cheat meals that she does that you don't know about? Do you think maybe she's putting some microwave popcorn in the microwave?
She'll tell you. We watched a great movie called Feel the Beat. Cute little movie the other night on Saturday night. Oh, the new Jack Ryan movie. We watched that. So she will occasionally make herself a little a Blue Bunny vanilla bean with a little whipped cream on top and have that. That's fine. But she eats perfectly beautifully all the time. That's enjoying life. That's enjoying
Sean is
life.
saying, Drake, I also eat croutons directly out of the bag, like potato
Thank
chips.
you, Sean.
Nothing wrong with that. Outdoor
man.
John suggests you just eat cat food. Straight out of the bag.
There you go.
One thing we do make sure and get a lot of, and I think everyone is probably aware of this, is I don't know if we're fiber maxing or not. Are you fiber maxing? That coming up with Make Missouri Healthy and fiber maxing again.
Gary also eats croutons out of the bag. How, this is a thing?
They are
Really?
good. That's a good snack. No, maybe not the healthiest. Be back.
It's Wake Up
In Make Missouri and You Healthy Again today, we'll talk about fiber maxing. Well, maybe not fiber maxing, but fiber increasing. That'd be a good idea for 9 out of 10 of us. Only 1 in 10 Americans, it is estimated, get enough fiber, which is pretty astounding because fiber has been linked to longevity, to quality of life, to decreased risk of heart disease and colon cancer and on and on and on. It helps your lipids, your cholesterol, your triglycerides.
Drake, can you flip around that bag of croutons?
You
How
read
much
my
fiber?
mind. You read my mind.
Looking it up right now.
Let's take a no. Take the bag of croutons. Take a look at the ingredients there. What does it say?
I wasn't going to say this on air, but I might be too stupid to find where it says.
Where does it say carbohydrates?
Oh, no. Oh, dietary fiber, 0 grams. Oh, dang. That sucks.
Stephanie almost lost her coffee there.
You just have to take some Metamucil in your coffee with your croutons, and then you'll be
boy,
good.
that sounds yummy.
Isn't Metamucil like fiber?
Yeah, it's great fiber. Yeah, it's soluble fiber. So, and here's the other thing. So there's a couple kinds of fiber. There's the roughage fiber that you can't digest, like eating, cellulose, like eating wood. And that's good. Very important for you. That's important.
My kids told me you should eat the kiwi with the skin on. I think it's a lot of fiber.
Oh, you should. If you're going to eat that baked potato, go for the skin. If you're going to eat, try to eat all of that kind of stuff. But soluble fiber, for those of you who have cholesterol issues or diabetes and want to reduce your heart risk, fiber is so important because it slows absorption of some of these things and reduces the things that can threaten your health from those metabolic standpoints. The idea is women should probably get 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day, men maybe 30 to 35, and that has to do with sort of a little ratio to think of, and that is that for every 1,000, just roughly speaking, for every 1,000 calories you eat, you should have about 14 grams of fiber. So if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, that's sort of a maintenance diet for a lot of folks for an ideal body weight kind of a thing. Now, if you're, what's the name of the quarterback who introduced Trump at the rally?
Jackson Dart.
Now, if you're him, he can probably get away with, 4,000 calories a day. I don't know, 35. But he would need more fiber too. Be very important for him. I don't know, I'm speculating here, but when I talk to my gastroenterology friends and you just look at the landscape, when we see these increasing number of cases of colorectal cancer in young people, this is the generation that grew up with the processed food boom, if you think about it. And,
Not me, I had croutons.
No, yeah, croutons, yeah. Well, if you eat the bag, it might increase your fiber. I don't know. But I just want you to remember that not only for your metabolism and for those chronic diseases that are threatening our health as we get older, also for your microbiome, because that's important. You feed your microbiome well, that helps your hormones as far as your feel-good hormones, your serotonin, and there's a lot to be said about it helps your immune system tremendously. And so, look, the fiber is there's just not too much that you can say bad about fiber. Those around you as you step up your fiber may have something to say. But Stephanie just did what do you call that? Grit your teeth emoji? What's that called? Like, so if you are going to ramp up the fiber, you might want to do it more slowly. so that you don't have an explosion, You got to be careful about that.
Don't
People
they say
are
you're
eating
supposed
breakfast.
And they say you're supposed to get your fiber from what? Fruits and vegetables, not so much the stuff in the powder.
That's right. If you can get it through eat real food. Remember that Maha Credo, eat real food. August ballot selections review with Governor Kehoe when we come back.
And I wonder, have you ever stopped to consider that our national anthem ends with a question mark? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? For generations, our military has defended that banner on battlefields across the globe. But my greatest fear has never been that America will be conquered from abroad. My greatest fear is that we, the citizens of this nation, will fail to preserve her from within.
Well, that was Gold Star mom Karen Vaughn at the Arlington commemorative ceremony yesterday on Memorial Day, and I think those are words that we should heed. Right? Maybe there is threat from Iran building a nuke, maybe from China economically. Who knows where else the threat may come from? But right now is a divisive time. We have kids, teenagers with these, like, what do they call smash mobs? Just what are they called? They just all of a sudden rise up and they're vandalizing places and stuff. It's spreading like wildfire. We have protests where people are wearing the Palestinian garb and, on sometimes violent protests breaking out. It's a very polarized time in our country. And I think a weekend like this probably gave many of us, I hope it gave some of the left pause for thought too, about like, we have a lot more in common than we have that separates us. At least that's my opinion. What's yours? 573-874-9390, 800-529-5572. Stephanie Bell?
This nearly brought me to tears yesterday. A lady, Cheryl Ann on Twitter, said, "This is probably a long shot, but if anybody happens to be in D.C. this weekend and plans on visiting Arlington, I would love to see a fresh photo of my husband's grave in Section 60. SSG Alan Shaw," and she puts his information. She said, I'm going to tear up. There's just something about knowing people still stop by, still say his name, and still remember. Anyway, she got so Tulsi Gabbard stopped by the grave, but random people all day long visited the grave, dropped off things, took pictures, and by the, so you'd see these photos all day long, and by the end of the day, it was just showered with, flags, flowers, other things.
That's cool.
Even kids had stopped by. It's really, it's really beautiful. If you need an uplifting moment this morning, and people stopped by and said they said a prayer, and oh my gosh.
Did you see this at Arlington? I think he was 10 years old, takes Donald Trump, who has a bouquet of flowers there that he's going to lay at the grave, to his 10-year-old is dressed up in Marine garb. He's got the white hat cap on, and it's just amazing. And takes Trump to his father's grave, Christopher James Sikori. And this is a little bit about how that unfolded.
Yeah, and a lady gave me this. And here's a picture of it. Here's a few pictures of it. Is that you? I'm protecting me and the baby. And that sounds.
And he's showing President Trump a little bit of a narrative about his dad. It's quite moving, and celebration, commemorations all around. It doesn't seem natural to say Happy Memorial Day, but yet, people will do that. I think it's just reflexive, because it's a holiday. I would say have a meaningful Memorial Day,
We had great ceremonies yesterday morning at the Missouri State Capitol, where they read off the list of the Cole County veterans who died in the last year. So it's always very moving at the Veterans Memorial at the State Capitol.
And I loved seeing the articles up on 93.9 The Eagle of the Avenue of Flags in Centralia. Hannah always talked about how moving that was. And a couple years ago, it was kind of a rainy Memorial Day weekend. We drove up there and drove through it and took the kids. And there's a name on every flag. It was really powerful. It's one of her favorite hometown events, and it was really cool to see in person.
You're right. And our friend Tony Lupo presented a wreath at the in behalf of the Knights of Columbus at the Boone County Courthouse as well. It was great to see Tony's contribution there, and had some things to say. So, and of course, many in Springfield remembered fallen soldiers at Memorial Day as well.
Those are always meaningful things. In case you're catching up on some of the weekend news that started, Friday noonish? Governor Kehoe places 4 ballot initiatives on the August ballot, on the August election, and then the rest, a couple of big ones saved for November. The income tax issue will be in August. Extension of the sales tax. The IP reform as well, right?
And then requiring charter counties to elect a county assessor. That's the one people are going to forget. They're going to be like, why are we voting on this again? But
that IP reform thing, to me, that's a big deal. We've talked a lot about how easy it is to just back and forth and amend the Constitution, and then sometimes that backfires, as we've seen. And then it's very difficult to reform it and make it better, once it's passed.
Yeah, this was referred by the legislature. They've been trying to do that for a while. I have mixed thoughts about it. It essentially, the initiative is like a power of the minority, right? And so if you make it harder to amend the Constitution while you're in power, that's probably good. Mm-hmm. But understanding that at some point the Democrats might be in power and we might want to change the Constitution as Republicans, then that higher threshold applies to us as well.
Well, I think in sort of an egalitarian kind of a way, though, all this, as I understand it, the main deal about this initiative petition change would be that now a majority of voters in every congressional district would have to vote yay for it to be a new amendment, right?
I believe those are the provisions.
As opposed to what seems some clunky or wonky kind of mechanisms now to get it done.
No, this is for voting, and so in the past you just had to have 50% to pass a constitutional amendment. If you recall, like Florida didn't pass that pro-abortion amendment, but they have I think they have a 60% threshold or something. Mm-hmm. And would we have had that 60% threshold, we wouldn't have gotten Amendment 3 last year because it passed by just a narrow margin. This is slightly different than that in that, according to the official ballot title here, it will require a majority of voters in each congressional district to approve. And the argument was that most, marijuana, abortion, all of that, it was failing in most of our congressional districts, but the margins in the cities was so high that it was pulling it over the 50% threshold.
Yeah, to me, it's the same argument in favor of this reform to wrest back a little power from the big metro centers. Geographically, Missouri is not a metro place. It's an agricultural, rural state. And yet, because of this, the simple majority kind of a thing with the amendment, the big power centers, the big population centers, which are blue as can be, really had more sway over the vote. It's the same reason I don't want the popular vote nationally to elect a president. I want to maintain the Electoral College because, boy, oh boy, then L.A. and Chicago and New York are going to rule. And so anyway, what do you think about that? Do you like this initiative petition reform? 573-874-9390, 800-529-5572. Similarly, what do you think about the income tax? And really, the essence of that that amendment or proposal would be to have the income tax sunset, but tied to adequate revenues to pay the bills. But then the legislature would have wide berth to decide how to pay the bills going forward instead of the income tax. I'd like to see the bill get smaller. I hope that is always at the top of the heap discussion before they start talking about taxing. Why don't we talk about let's reduce the amount that we need to cover, and then let's talk about how to fill up that bucket with a different tax. John, you think that'll be top of the line discussion, or will it be, well, let's see, the income tax, we're going to lose, $5 billion here, so we got to figure out how we can sales tax it, $5 billion more.
Well, I go back to the voters, and I think the voters, they hear the headlines, and it says, hey, Missouri and the governor want to do away with Missouri's income tax. Well, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be phased in over a number of years, sort of like how the gas tax took hold. And there are a lot of entities out there and still a lot of questions about how they're going to fund, volunteer fire departments and ambulance districts, et cetera, and the schools have their say on it too. So it's going to be interesting.
We hear a lot about the education, the public school funding formula. So of a school, maybe it's different from school district to school district, but of a school district's revenues, how much comes from the state and how much comes from local taxes? Do we know that? I mean,
somebody knows that.
We hear the governor talking a lot about the funding formula and working on it. It's a couple-year process to get it right, and reform that. But because that's one of the arguments against having property taxes go away. Because who's going to fund the schools and police and property,
Yeah, I'm thinking the local match. It isn't. I don't think it's quite 50%, but it's a better part of it on local schools and getting their local
significant
funding. Yeah,
because I know they're always worried about the seat count. How many kids are in the seat, or how many are registered. This and that. It'll be an interesting election in August. I think it'll actually probably spur a lot of campaigning and a lot of interest and a lot of turnout. It'll be good to see. Because traditionally, we just haven't had as much. Now, Stephanie, you're right. I mean, since the Trump era, I think Trump voters have, in general, been pretty motivated to come out for elections. But, boy, it's sure energized the left as well. So it's sort of a reaction, opposite reaction, kind of a reality. I'd love to know. I reached out to the governor's communications people to see if we can get him on to talk about his rationale for the ballot initiatives and which one or ones or several is he really jazzed about. I think that'll be fun if we can get a statement from him and get maybe a few words with him. That'd be cool. Okay, so I wanted to talk about. The indoor childhood as we go into summer. Ben Sass, who has terminal cancer, wrote an interesting piece about the indoor childhood being bad for America. Talk about that when we come back. Well, Ben Sass, you have to hand it to this guy. He is suffering from one of the worst cancers you can have, and yet he's getting this experimental treatment, a new treatment, which has actually extended his life well beyond what was thought. And he's writing. He's a opinion guy in a section called Free Expression in the Journal. He says a digital revolution is making nearly every aspect of modern life. A top concern of parents, educators, and sociologists is screen time. And that points to a larger problem. American children are weirdly held hostage indoors. He said, a lot of neighborhoods were planned, and suburban neighborhoods offered the convenience of the city and the space of the country. But it turns out that at age 11, 1 in 4 kids aren't allowed outside without adult supervision. Is that square with your practice, Stephanie?
Depends on ages, but
well, that's what I'm saying. At age 11, 1 in 4 aren't allowed outside without adult supervision.
Ooh, I probably let them outside by themselves, maybe around 10.
And at age 14, more than half don't have permission to leave their streets. He says adolescence should be an exciting coming-of-age period, a gradual transition to adulthood. If we don't give teenagers more responsibility, in other words, Jordan Peterson talked about this. Let your kid break an arm skateboarding. Just don't let him kill himself doing something really stupid. They need to learn that.
Like when we were kids, they just kicked us out of the house and were like, you're on your own, see you later. And now that my son's 14, he spends time roaming the neighborhood in like the neighborhood bike gang or whatever, and they'll, go to the gas station or play hide and seek or something. A little bit more independence, but it still freaks me out.
But what's weird is he says, and he's really, if you think about how bizarre this is, he says, allowed to navigate dark corners of the internet on their own, many kids are bizarrely prohibited from exploring their own neighborhoods. Think about that. I mean, it's counterintuitive, but it's probably accurate for a lot of kids, right? They can navigate and get around parental controls. Maybe not your controls, Stephanie, but a lot of us regular people. We're regular people. It's difficult to try to.
It's tough for parents these days, right? Because there are a lot of weirdos out there, and even if you feel like you live in a safe neighborhood, you don't really know who's around, and I mean, I don't think I could, like, if my kid gets snatched or like whatever, it'd be hard to like forgive yourself as a parent. At the same time, I do agree that like we're not giving them the independence and like the life skills that they need if we are constantly helicoptering over them.
John, now Stephanie mentioned that there are a lot of weirdos out there and they could snatch your kid. I don't disagree with you. That's the perception, but is it the reality? Are there more weirdos out there now and kid snatchers than there were 20, 30, 40 years ago? I'm not sure. Maybe it's just more reporting and exposure of that.
It's a 24-hour news cycle that we're so used to now that we hear all the, guilty as charged, all the bad news.
If it bleeds,
it leads. Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's more bad guys out there, but we sure cover a lot of them.
But I think finding safe ways to teach your kids life skills is important. And so we have adopted, if you want to get a haircut, you have a phone, you know the name of the place, you can call, you can walk there after school, you can go, you can pay, you can leave a tip, and that's on you. And that's worked really well so far, I hope.
I don't know, it's something to give thought to. Is Sass right? Are we letting our kids explore dark electronic social media neighborhoods, but not their own backyard? I don't know. Oh, I've got a website for you who are worried about AI. Oh, have I got the website and a conspiracy theory breaking website. I found the coolest website. Well, it's actually a chat bot that's part of a large and growing experiment. And this is an AI thing of which I approve it. This is Randy approved, Stephanie.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Well, can we all admit that conspiracy theories seem to be the thing of the day, right? I mean, if you think about it, everyone...
I'm going to get lawyerly on you here and tell you I need you to define conspiracy theory, because a lot of those, quote, conspiracy theories came kind of true.
Well, for instance, that 9/11 was an inside job, and the heat of the fire wasn't enough to melt the... Drake's going, you talking to me?
Well, the big one going around now is the correspondence dinner. It was all a set-up job.
Well, and when Trump was shot in the ear in Butler, Pennsylvania, right? There was talk then that it was all an inside job just to, get people all lathered up over Trump, right? Well, make of it what you will, but MIT has this thing called, this is awesome, because I checked it out with something that I don't really want to go into now, but a medical thing that many people are misinformed about, and it's a shame because they may be in the long run, maybe making some what might turn out to be less than optimal decisions for their health. But I checked it out, and it confirmed the best data I can find. It's called debunkbot.com. Debunkbot.com. And it invites you to challenge whatever you like. If you think, I don't know, if you think unicorns are real, okay, whatever. It basically has a conversation with you and invites you to do that. And what the researchers are finding is that David Rand, who is one of the guys behind this at MIT, conspiracy theories are particularly vulnerable to evidence, he says in an interview. Fundamentally, most conspiracy theories are highly implausible and just don't make sense. And the data is showing them that with respectful chatbot initiated conversation or involved conversation, people actually end up saying, oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. When alternatives that make sense with evidence are presented. In other words, facts matter. Now, you could argue, well, I don't believe the facts. Well, but are you going to believe facts from some other non-curated source? Are we to the point where no one believes any facts are true? I don't know. That's the only argument I can see against this. So they did use the 9/11 being an inside job one, that jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel beams. But a steel structure, and remember this is from MIT, so unless you think MIT doesn't know what they're talking about, a steel structure doesn't need to melt to fail. It just needs to be sufficiently weakened. At 1100 degrees, steel loses half its strength. The fires in the towers raged at these temps for over an hour in the case of the South Tower and over nearly 2 hours in the North Tower. When it comes to anti-Semitism, and, they mentioned this one, so when a participant, because you're invited to engage and say, hey, what would you like to check out about what you believe? The Jews control the media. It's the Jews. The DebunkBot responded by listing many major media companies that were not owned by Jews. For instance, Meta is a publicly traded company controlled by institutional investors and a board of directors rather than solely by Mark Zuckerberg, who is Jewish. Participants said they'd reconsider their opinion, reduce their belief in Jews controlling the media from 90 out of 100 to 20 out of 100. I think it's fascinating. You ought to try it out. If there's something that you've been told you believe and someone has said, oh, come on, that's a conspiracy theory. Nancy Pelosi, pedophile ring centered in a pizzeria. You remember that one?
Pizzagate, yeah.
Pizzagate. Yeah. Check it out. Try it. I'm just saying. It's an interesting thing. It's MIT, and it's a learning thing. I tried it out, and it confirmed a lot of the things, and it actually helped me understand in a more user-friendly way maybe how to relate this to people with whom I'm talking when I'm trying to help them by debunking a conspiracy. So I don't know. It's just interesting.
But where's the fun in that, Randy? Like, half the fun of, spouting some of the conspiracy theories is just to, make people mad. At least that's my experience. I mean, There's a couple that I truly believe in, but
just a couple.
All right. Well, we need to have a conspiracy episode. Just like all of the show, talk about all these different conspiracies. I'm going to work with this bot, and I'm going to prove some of them right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, and again, now remember, there have been political fact checks, and what is the one that's so lefty that's sort of a political thing, and they always take the left side of the aisle in the arguments. Is it PolitiFact or one of those? And, what's the other one? Snopes tends to be sort of left-oriented. So maybe MIT is left-oriented and this is influenced by that. I mean, if I'm trying to be objective about critiquing the conspiracy-busting debunkbot.com, got to be fair there. But it actually, in my case, used scientific, great, unbelievably beautiful evidence in at least one of the several sub-arguments within the conspiracy I was proposing to it.
Let's open up a little. What conspiracy did you debate with the debunk
Statins.
bot? The what?
That statins, like, because they deplete CoQ10, cause all kinds of damage, and they're going to give you brain fog, and they're going to cognitively deplete you.
Only you, Randy, could have the power to talk about any conspiracy known to man, and you're I think statins is the one.
I mean, birthday gifts, statins, gardening. I think you spend more time with AI than I do.
I spend a lot of time on AI.
Apparently.
I'm just having fun. Look, it's all in the conversation. Everyone's talking about it. I'm just observing. I'm an observer of the landscape of the culture. I love to observe the landscape, like a beautiful panorama of the beautiful things going on in our culture, including AI bashing.
You know what AI will do for you at the end of the year? It'll do like a year in review, like what you asked it most, what the weirdest question you asked it, all of this. We're going to do this at the end of the year, and we're going to get a report about Randy's AI usage.
Yeah, I could go through. I keep all my conversations. You keep all your conversations? Keep all of them. I can go back and expand on a conversation. We talked earlier, in case you're just joining us, we'll put that on the podcast. We talked earlier about how the large, what is it called? Large learning models? Is that what it's called? Or language?
Large language
models, yeah. How the makers of those admit that they tend to sometimes introduce old facts and outdated info or unrelated info into a current thread. So don't just continue one endless conversation, because, it'll bring up that a year from now, it'll bring up that we talked about Drake snacking on croutons, when we ask about something else. So, I don't know. John, you use AI for your personal life?
Yeah, but you got to, even for personal stuff, fact check.
I remember on this show when it first came out, people were,
Oh, we had some really crazy stuff, and that was, AI 1.0, but our buddy Hannah said she was married with 3 kids. You had to check it. It's gotten a lot better, obviously, but early on, and you can still come up with some things when you do a deep search and go, what? This doesn't make sense.
Tim says, regarding 9/11 being an inside job, does it explain Building 7? Well, okay, Tim, why don't you go on to debunkbot.com and report back to us? Come on, go ahead and give it a try. And look, if it turns out that debunkbot.com is not at least a reasonable attempt at fact-based discussions about so-called conspiracy theories, then let me know. But I think this is an interesting deal. On at least one case, I really have to give it a lot of credit. It came up with a lot of things. For instance, okay, you talked about statins.
No, you talked about statins.
Yeah, I talked about statins. A lot of people will come into the office and say, well, the cholesterol is needed in the brain. And statins, if you lower your cholesterol, you won't have enough cholesterol in your brain. And therefore, you'll be an idiot, And, well, it turns out, I've tried to explain to folks, but it's true. The brain manufactures, it has its own machine and its own way of sequestering its own cholesterol. There's a blood-brain barrier that excludes the cholesterol-carrying particles from the brain. So the brain takes care of its own cholesterol self. Thank you. You're welcome. But most people don't know that. And so then these things get people bashed. And statins can, in some instances, cause some, I think some people do have reactions to them. I don't deny that. But overall, they're not the evil terrible thing that there's probably no greater body of evidence in recent medical history that validates the life-extending aspects and cardiovascular event reducing aspect of statins. They're not for everyone. That's fine. And we respect that. But I mean, I just don't want to have false information enter into that calculus. That's all. I want to be honest about it. Just like we're honest that the calculus on vaccines wasn't exactly right. But they did help a lot of people. Drake, start with flatlanders and how we did not land on the moon. Why don't you go on that? Yeah. Why don't you start with that one, Drake?
No, I think I'm going to start with the flat Earth one. Not the theory that the Earth is flat, but the theory that the government started that conspiracy to make all conspiracy theorists look crazy. That's the one I'm going to do.
Now,
I thought it was started by the aluminum foil industry.
Yeah, Reynolds has an interest in expending those.
Exactly.
Isaiah is proper, and we've pointed this out. Now we can't go adoring AI. I haven't said I adore it. I'm using it, I think, like all startups. Look, when the combustion engine came about, engines were exploding, catching on fire, failing in the middle of a trip. I mean, when the internet came about, how those floppy disks working out for you, right? I mean, there was a lot of junk, a lot of fits and starts. I just think that like any maturing great revolution in technology, you have to keep an eye on it, which is what we all do collectively. That's great. Isaiah says we can't go adoring AI and then complain about the data center at the same time. And now, have you heard? Kevin O'Leary came out the other day and said that his IT people found that all of a sudden they were pummeled with DMs, just like 4,000% increase on two different platforms. And he researched it and found out, did a deep dive. They were all coming from IP addresses oversight. This was all over AI bashing, data center bashing. And so, I think maybe we need to challenge this debunkbot.com with whether AI data centers raise energy costs and use up the water table or not. We'll see where we come out with.
That data is already available on Twitter. The answer is no.
Oh, I believe everything I see on Twitter. All right. I think Stephanie's actually changing my mind on that.
Because I've been providing you with real facts.
Well, but
not
I provide
just
you
Twitter,
with real
but like
facts.
studies.
But when I provide you with real facts, you still reject them. So I don't understand. It's a one-way fact street.
You're on
here.
a weird side of Twitter. What was that website that Randy was getting his news from, Drake?
Bro Bible?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
That's what you said.
That's a Facebook. That's where they get you on Facebook.
John, what's coming up when we come back?
Waymos versus Bruno the Rottweiler.
Okay. Stay tuned.
It's Wake
except for this.
An Atlanta neighborhood dealing with an unusual kind of pest, empty Waymo vehicles, the autonomous driverless cars, circling cul-de-sacs. I think yesterday morning we had 50 cars that came through between 6 and 7, one guy said. It's almost every little cul-de-sac in our area, so I think it's a problem. The glut of robo-taxis is worrying residents who say we're families, we have pets, we've got kids getting on the bus in the morning, and it doesn't seem safe to have all that traffic. One neighbor says she even tried putting up her own sign to deter the vehicles, but it caused a traffic jam of Waymos turning around in her driveway to get out. Residents say they've reached out to local officials as well as Waymo, who says they are committed to being good neighbors and we take community feedback seriously. There was some payback of sorts. One neighbor's Rottweiler named Bruno ripped the plastic bumper off one of the Waymos when it chased his girlfriend, Lily, the Labrador. The dogs were not hurt.
Huh.
So there you go with the Waymos running wild in the cul-de-sacs.
Interesting.
So see, Steph was right. You know, there's a reason to rein your kids in. You want to get them mowed down by a Waymo at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Do you think the Waymo has a map glitch somehow in their programming, or why
Sure
are they?
sounds like
why
it,
are they
doesn't it?
heading into said cul-de-sac?
Well, it's a whole fleet from the sound of it.
That's
This
what I
is
mean.
Atlanta. I mean, this, so there's probably a bunch of them.
And it's right. It is a hazard for kids and dogs, and for pets.
I think doesn't it have a thing where it like stops if instead of runs things over?
Allegedly.
Wasn't there the one deal? Where was it? San Francisco,
It
where
did kill
mowed
someone's
down
dog.
the neighbor's cat.
Well, humans do that too.
Yeah, it's true.
You wouldn't mind that, right? If it mowed down a few cats.
Did you
dogs.
see? I posted a picture of me holding a dog. this
Wow,
weekend.
a revelation! You holding a dog?
Yeah.
Was it sort of like you would?
I don't know what kind of dog it is. It was a cute little dog.
Wait
It
a
was
minute.
sweet.
There is progress being made. There is progress being made. Peter's like, oh my God.
There might have been a few beverages involved before I held the dog, but I did it. It's a cute little dog. It's sweet. Peter is astonished. Don't ask me to. Don't ask me to.
There we go.
Peter
We're
has
gonna
his
fix her
dog
up.
in the studio today, and I'm not going anywhere. It's too big.
Hang on. I got hammered by Stephanie Bell for getting into the little assortment of Danish cookies that you get in a Christmas tin left over that I found after I was dehydrated working with the bees for a few hours and hadn't had lunch. Tell me about a few drinks of poisonous alcohol for your liver, Stephanie Bell, that led you had so many of said drinks, poisonous drinks for your liver and your brain that kill neurons, that it led you to hold a dog, and you're hammering me for eating a couple little Danish butter cookies? Hello?
Maybe she needs to, dumb herself down a little bit. She's on the show with us, stupid guys.
I know.
Good point.
Just another day
Here
at the
you
bar.
go. Here's the picture.
Look, and you're looking lovingly at that dog. Like I don't know, maybe you're sort of looking like you're rejecting the dog. Too
She's
close?
She's well behaved.
Yeah?
Actually.
Try to lick your face?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Our dog found an old dead deer head and came in everything all over it, and then he wanted to lick my face. Not going to happen. We talk with Evan Brown about Iran when we come back. Stay tuned.
Radio Network headquarters.
It's a failed country. Everybody knows it. They don't have electricity. They don't have money. They don't have really anything. They don't have food.
It's your morning addiction.
And now it does look like we're back to the situation that we were before.
Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell. The Zimmer News Team.
First and foremost, family is first, and I think she's doing the right thing.
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
Well, welcome back into the third hour of what feels like a Monday, but it's actually Tuesday after the big Memorial Day weekend, the kickoff to summer. It was a gorgeous one in most of Missouri, most of the weekend, and hopefully our weekends will remain that way. We hope that Eben Brown had a relaxing Memorial Day weekend, but I have a sneaking suspicion that with all that was going on with Iran, maybe not. We thought we were going to have an MOU, and then we don't, and then there's kinetic action. Eben, welcome into the program. Wow, a busy weekend over there in the Straits and beyond.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, it's certainly busy. It did appear for a while that there may have been some real diplomatic movement or maybe even military movement. The way President Trump did not go to Don Jr.'s wedding over the weekend because he had things to do, as he said. At the end of it all, I don't think much really came from it. President Trump seemed to be optimistic about a deal of some sort. The Iranians pushed back publicly on that, which is kind of par for the course. We did have some kinetic action. CENTCOM had to strike a maritime asset of the Iranians because it was laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. And they then struck a missile battery, which they say was taking aim and preparing to fire at American assets. So CENTCOM says these were defensive moves in nature, that they still will abide by the ceasefire. Whether or not Iran does is something else again. But the ceasefire, they don't consider it to be fully broken.
Eben, it's interesting, isn't it, that we hear that they struck mine-laying boats. I thought we were past that. I thought we were now in the cleanup phase of old mines, but apparently they're still laying out new mines over there, and that was the start of the stimulus here.
We've been cleaning up the old mines, the original ones, and we've destroyed much of their navy. We don't know the nature of the type of vessel that was being used. They could have commandeered some old fishing, ship, fishing boat or something to do it. Anything, of course, is possible. Therefore, they were engaged in that activity. So there we are. The other thing that's been interesting or curious has been that Iran's rhetoric has sort of changed in the past 48, 72 hours. They are now making a lot of allusions to the 1982 Iran-Iraq war, where Saddam Hussein's military actually went boots on the ground into Iran and occupied part of it. They framed that war as a war of resistance and ridding of occupiers, and they're now using that same language with regard to the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. The problem here is that the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf are not Iran's territory. They never were. It's international waters, and they have been engaging in piracy. But it is Iran's MO through much of the existence of the Islamic Republic to rewrite current events in history to try to portray themselves as victims fighting back foreign occupiers, namely the United States and its vassal state of Israel, as so they like to call it. And that, of course, is not true. It's a perversion of the facts, and hopefully we don't fall for that, but I'm afraid we have a number of college students that probably will.
Yeah, boy, that couldn't be truer. That's Eben Brown. At Fox Eben Brown, national correspondent and podcaster on Fox News Radio, Fox News. He joins us on Wake Up Missouri on this post-Memorial Day edition.
Evan, give us your take on the Trump visit to China, and what do you think the accomplishments were there?
Well, I think the major accomplishment was that the president and President Xi of China got to be buddy-buddy again in the same room and kind of show the world that they're not really on the brink of war, because that's not good for anybody. It's not good for China. It's not good for the United States. It's not good for the world. So I think they have a vested interest in maintaining peace and maintaining good relationships, even if we're not necessarily allies or good trading partners, because we're not allies and we're not good trading partners. They're not good trading partners for us, I should say. China still engages in the manipulation of its currency and the undermining of American markets and the stealing of American intellectual property with which to create cheaper knockoffs that they sell online to Americans. That has to change if there's going to be any type of real, better arrangements between the two countries. But you want the two guys at the top to at least be on good terms. And I think that was ultimately what was achieved here, is to show the world that, both sides are talking, they're willing to work things out, and that it's not as hostile as that it appears at times. And then, of course, also to assert some American dominance here. This is the first time China is receiving the American president after American firepower was so greatly demonstrated, not just in Iran, but also in Venezuela. We were able to take the Venezuelan leader in a matter of minutes, and in doing so showed that China's designed weaponry and also Russia's designed weaponry really no match for us. And so that was, a way of sort of putting our foot down and demonstrating our dominance. And I think that was well demonstrated by China's reception for President Trump. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance. Just this past week, Vladimir Putin visited President Xi in Beijing and did not get such a big welcome reception.
Now, back to the conflict in Iran, the gas prices. I mean, we are, I think, hovering around $4.50 nationally. I mean, even if we can work out a deal this week, I mean, how much pressure is that gas price putting on the Trump administration to get a deal done?
I think that there are entities that are putting that pressure, or trying to put that pressure on the president, because high gas prices are never good for anyone, and often they lead to some kind of instability with regard to elections, especially midterms. I think the president is trying to push back on that, and not everyone may understand it because they just see the price that they pay at the pump. But this is a different situation than, let's say, under President Biden or President Obama, where high gas prices are intended to be the result. They curtail American oil procurement. They advocate for regulatory fees and taxation to drive the price of gas up to make you use less of it. And as opposed to what's happening now, and that is the existence of a war that is preventing the transiting of part of the world's oil supply out of the Strait of Hormuz. We don't have a shortage of oil here in the United States. We actually have plenty, and we're selling our excess. But with the rest of the world not able to get some of their oil means the price on ours goes up because of the laws of supply and demand. And the oil speculators who are responsible for the pricing, they know this. In fact, when things were looking as if we could perhaps maybe have a deal yesterday, the price of oil dropped. Even American oil prices dropped. Crude oil price speculations dropped by about almost $6 a barrel. That was one of the biggest drops in recent weeks. And so that's because those speculators know that there's just a bunch of oil sitting in storage and on tankers in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz and in the Persian Gulf, and that at some point in the future it will come out.
Eben, we're talking with Eben Brown from Fox News Radio. Last question for you. It was reported by some outlets that there was a fairly terse or tense or heated conversation between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump last week. Netanyahu allegedly saying we need more aggressive kinetic action. Again, some reporting. What's your reporting say?
Both the President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have commented that this was simply not true, that they are well on the same page with things. The United States is, look, let's put it this way. The U.S. and Israel have similar goals in all of this. but not always the same goals. And each nation has to pursue their goals as as what's best for each nation. I think everyone agrees to that. The Israelis are very concerned about nuclear weapons, as are the Americans, but Israel is much closer to Iran than the United States is. So they have a bit more, I think, of a pressing attitude about it. But Prime Minister Netanyahu seems very eager to follow President Trump's lead in a lot of this. And President Trump is very receptive to Prime Minister Netanyahu's opinions and analysis and, of course, intelligence on these matters. And I still believe that you don't have a lot of daylight between the two, and things will continue as they continue. Israel is beginning its a series of very intensive strikes on Hezbollah this morning because Hezbollah has been taking aim at Israel yet again. Supposedly, this was part of the ceasefire with Iran, but Iran, which funds and directs Hezbollah, has been pushing Hezbollah to once again attack Israel. Israel's not going to take that. Israel has been gearing up for a major offensive again. In fact, you have people in the southern suburbs of Beirut that have been evacuating because they fear it's going to happen. And Israel has told its northern communities to get ready, to spend time in shelters, and that schools need to go to remote learning.
Well, I, for one, tend to agree with what's been reported. Netanyahu's another priority, which is regime change in Iran, whereas I don't think it's as important to Trump. At least it's not been expressed. They are so disingenuous. They've been absolutely unreliable. That is, the Iranians, with their endorsement or their statements about anything in these negotiations. I don't see how much changes without regime change in the long run. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and President Trump's argument is that regime change has already happened, in that the people who were in charge are dead, and that the people left are fighting among each other for dominance. We seem to be dealing with the political leaders in terms of the president and then the leader of the parliament, and they may not be on the same page as the IRGC top echelon, which may be less pragmatic than the political ones. At the same time, everyone there is a part of this ongoing death cult, right? In the government, in the Islamic regime, and they may just simply be, one way or another, be willing to go down fighting rather than be seen as capitulating to U.S. demands. Yeah. And I tend to think that the U.S. would oblige them at the end of it all, but President Trump always pursues negotiations. There were negotiations ongoing for months before the seizure of Maduro in Venezuela. There are negotiations going on now with Cuba. I think it's President Trump's MO to always try to get a negotiated deal and use the military to further that along at various points, even if it's done in stages. So, again, we'll see what happens.
Well, deep insight from Eben Brown. We really appreciate all of that analysis and reporting, Eben. Thank you so much for that. It's, of course, a dynamic situation. Look forward to the next conversation about it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Wow. Lots of moving parts, huh? Now Israel firing on Hezbollah. Will they be? Will the United States be accused of breaking the ceasefire by proxy? Well, that's already happened, right? Craziness, huh? Back with the Morning Market Report and the Morning Bell with Stephanie after this.
It's Wake Up
It's time for the Morning Bell with Stephanie.
The markets were closed yesterday, but when we look back at Friday, it was a day in the green. We had the NASDAQ up 0.19%, the S&P up 0.37%, the Dow up 0.58%. As we look at the sectors, we had big gains in health, and communication services and consumer staples were in the red. As we look at the futures, it seems like people are optimistic about a potential deal because everybody is in the green this morning, even though those gas prices are still high. And a surprise winner from last week, BlackBerry apparently talked about its pivot to software. Did you ever have a BlackBerry?
Nope, never did.
Anyway, its stock shot up 19% on Friday.
I had a Palm Pilot.
I thought, that totally tracks. I am not.
They had to
shocked
take
by that.
Obama's BlackBerry away from him because
that's right.
I loved my BlackBerry. All right, if you're like me and your kids are now out of school and you're wondering, don't these kids, can't they get a dang job? It's harder and harder, apparently.
Wow.
So according to the firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, they do some sort of reporting on employment. Employers are expected to hire just 790,000 teens this summer. That's down from 801,000 last year and way down from more than 1 million in 2024.
My goodness.
So they're saying not only they might be disappearing because of AI and automation. We'll skip right over that one. But they said also
it's a conspiracy theory.
They're being older workers are delaying retirement and taking part-time seasonal jobs. And they said also entertainment and leisure hiring plans are down 70% this year. So people are, inflation is squeezing people's budgets. And so those typical like ice cream shop or like lifeguarding or working at a theme park, those jobs just aren't there. But they are, apparently Gen Z is not just sitting around. They are doing more things like gig working. So Uber, DoorDash, GoPuff, Lyft, all of these types of things for summer income. Business Insider is reporting that Gen Z is now the fastest growing age group on gig work apps, with registrations up 8.4% year over year. And some delivery apps are saying new signups from young workers are nearly double this spring. Okay. So, and it kind of aligns with Gen Z's stated needs. It's flexible, it's easy to get started, you kind of get your own schedule. And kind of work a little bit more independently. So,
plus they support one another with their insatiable delivery buying habits, right?
Yeah.
Right, Drake?
Of course.
You wouldn't need a job if you weren't ordering DoorDash all the time.
For cashews.
But for cashews or croutons. Apparently, lifeguard openings are reportedly up 78%. So you can, still live your dream of dating the cute lifeguard in the red swimsuit.
Make Missouri swim again. There you go.
But I think most of us grew up like when you were a teenager, you had a job, and we haven't brought in sports to this mix as well. I know, there are already things on the calendar with respect to fall sports. And so that makes it tough too as we get more serious about our kids' sports.
I caddied for a summer at a country club. Can you still
I don't know.
Do kids still caddy?
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I worked in construction.
Yeah.
I worked a lot of retail.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Plus, the hiring laws are so sometimes difficult.
That first job is such a rite of passage, though.
It is.
Kids are missing out.
That's right. Hey, more coming up on Wake Up Missouri. Glad you're here. Stephanie and John, where we really are so deeply, deeply grateful. And I know you got choked up a little bit talking about the Arlington, scene and graves surrounded by flowers and flags and prayers and strangers speaking. It does give you pause to think what it is that we all have in common. The ability to disagree, the ability to have that common sense of freedom of speech. And, even though we may not like it, we respect others to freedom of speech. Somehow that's been transmuted into freedom of vandalizing if you disagree with something that happens to someone. That throwing, if you don't like the way the police are conducting themselves, we'll just throw frozen water bottles. Sounds like a good idea. And then there's this. Bernie Sanders was campaigning with this guy Plattner in Maine, and I really think it's really a harbinger of things, lady and gentlemen, that are going to be on this election cycle. It's the class warfare thing. It's alive and well.
So here's a radical far left idea. Instead of spending $1.5 trillion on the military as Trump wants, how about spending a few $1 billion to start building low-income and affordable housing?
There you go. And that pretty much frames what I think we're going to be seeing in the midterms, right? Defund the military, defund law enforcement, defund everything that is the first obligation of the country's leadership and the state and local leadership, which is to keep us safe, and instead hand out, redistributive social welfare money, social programs. It's getting some play again. And
a lot of people struggling with the economy, and that hits pretty close to home for a lot of folks.
No, absolutely. I mean, what is it costing $1 billion a day, give or take, maybe a little less for this effort there in Iran? And people look at that, and on the surface they say, well, wait a minute, how's that helping me out? And I understand that. On the other hand, that maybe you would feel different if you lost a relative or a neighbor or a dear friend or someone who has perished at the hands of one of Iran's proxies or Iran directly. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis.
Or you don't particularly like the idea of a day-to-day nuclear threat hanging over your head.
And there's this thing I read over the weekend that someone proposed the idea that Trump is actually he has that 4D goal of, through this effort, amassing a serious alliance between Israel and neighboring Arab states and the West. Well, mainly America at this point, because the rest of the West in Europe I don't know, they've lost their minds. Although maybe the UK is coming back. Think about it. The UK, there were mass rallies, patriotic rallies, asking Starmer to close the borders and do some of the things that Trump's already done here. So I don't know, maybe there's that loftier goal of, by recognizing the common menace that Iran is and continuing to hammer on that like Trump has done and building on the Abraham Accords, maybe we look at a new vision of, it's basically China and occasionally Russia against the rest of the world. That's pretty lofty. I like it.
I do too. And I think Trump always has a bigger plan. We just don't always know it. I think he's very smart, especially when it comes to foreign relations. And I think China is the ultimate threat. Yeah. And I think this right now, we're distracted, and that's a dangerous place for us to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the other hand, I think right now, many Americans rightfully are looking at this situation saying, well, who's gonna stand down first? Iran, whose economy is in shambles, and Eben Brown, who joined us earlier, said, well, those people it's a death cult. They don't care. It's an honor to die for a lost cause, essentially. There's no way they're going to ultimately defeat America if they want to fight that fight to the bitter end. But their bitter end is okay with them, whereas our bitter end, we'd rather not go there. That's why we're fighting this war. And at the other hand, I mean, look, the popularity of the president in this war is going down, down, down ahead of these midterms, and he desperately needs Congress on his side. We saw a revolt last week when they left town without voting on ICE and CBP funding. 7 or 8 senators said no. And this so-called slush fund, to pay convicted J6. I'm talking about, I think J6, I think blue-haired granny that walks in and looks around the rotunda because, the Capitol Police, sort of opened up the gates and said, hey, come on in. I don't think that. I think they should have reparations. They should be somehow remedied by the government. On the other hand, if someone violently attacked police officers, they have no, I'm sorry, I don't think you have any remedy there. If you were convicted, you just don't have any remedy. I think both things can be true. But is Hunter Biden going to argue that he was a victim of weaponization? And is he going to get reparations? I don't know. That really ticks senators off, John.
Good luck on that one, but it's a valid question.
And they don't like the fact that the all expenses paid by private donations ballroom, where we knock down the East Wing before we really have things set in stone as far as what's going to happen there. They were ticked off at that too, and that got in the way of passing border and ICE extension on funding. So it can be argued Donald Trump creates these opportunities for people who are susceptible to headlines to say, well, look, there you go. The guy's reckless. He just acts before he thinks. Well, I think he's actually thinking, but sometimes I think he thinks like a CEO rather than a president that has some other, checks and balances, powers to look at.
He's a wheeler dealer, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Yeah.
And how's that worked out for him? Pretty good.
Pretty good. No, and I think it's generally worked out pretty good for America. Like I said, I think there's been some moves that have hurt people that could have been a little better calibrated. The tariffs being one of them. It really hurt a lot of small business people. If you're a big business people, and those are the people that Trump, buddies around with mostly. I don't see many bike shop owners at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe I'm wrong. And that, look, everyone, I mean, he's not, no president's perfect, but it's sometimes I wish he would get out of his own way, as one of my friends put it, who generally supports Donald Trump. I generally support him, but man, sometimes he's his own worst enemy with the messaging. And this thing with continually saying over and over and over again, we're on the break, we're on the break of a thing. We're going to have a big, beautiful deal. The Iranians are coming around. Yeah, that regime, there's some pretty decent people over there now. Well, show me the agreement. Show me the deal. Let's get it done. And this latest thing was called a defensive action in defense of the mines that were being laid. And I think that's a smart way to re-invoke some kinetic action and get their attention. I'm glad to see that, for one. 573-874-9390, the number if you'd like to weigh in on this discussion. 800-529-5572. John says our military operates 24/7, 365. How does Iran cost $1 billion per day? Well, certainly, I think the increased cost of the materiel, and certainly, I mean, talk about fuel to get all the ships there and everything.
Well, if you have an individual missile that's over $1 million a piece, it adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah. But I couldn't be more diametrically opposed, and I wish our teachers teaching, do they still teach civics and, American history and Constitution and in the schools, Stephanie?
Yes.
I heard that in some Columbia schools, they've sort of marginalized that kind of stuff. I don't know what that's true, but I mean, someone needs to remind that there are enumerated powers, and the general welfare clause has vastly been overinterpreted by the Supreme Court and allowed for all kinds of general welfare in terms of the Constitution does not mean what we now think of as welfare. But that's what Bernie Sanders and all of his lefty, progressive, woke, let's take from one group and give to another. And by the way, we'll smatter around a little bit so everyone's getting a little bit so no one can oppose it because, well, I'm getting mine and you're getting yours. And wink, wink. We can say we don't like big government doing that, but no, I'm getting mine and you're getting yours. And to me, the military, if you're going to tolerate government and the corruption and the fraud that goes with it, okay, let's tolerate it in the military. That's an assigned duty of the federal government. I don't know where it says they pay for health care and education and housing and child care, and I don't know where it says all that. Food stamps. But it's sort of gotten out of hand. Lynn says, talking about jobs, we were talking about jobs for kids last segment. My son and I were just talking last night how when he was young, he got his first job mowing yards. So many yard mowing companies, it's harder for teenagers to find those jobs.
That's a good point.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. All right, hey, let's wrap it up with some leftovers. We have a few of those when we come back on Wake Up Missouri. Stay tuned.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
On this morning, talking about everything from Drake's bag of snack croutons to my finding an interesting conspiracy testing site. You ought to test your possible conspiracy theory if you're looking inward at the mirror and going, am I believing something that may not be true? Debunkbot.com. And, of course, covering the top news stories, Iran and others. So if you don't get a chance to catch all the show, please check into the podcast later, and Drake will put that together, have that up timely for you on the websites. John, what do you have on leftovers?
Sounds like you'll be paying more when Junior goes back to Old Mizzou this fall. Tuition at MU and 3 other colleges going up by 4%. The undergrad tuition hike includes Missouri S&T, UMKC, and UMSL. And they tell us Mizzou's tuition going up about $20 a credit hour to about $500 a credit hour at Mizzou. So there you go. Be advised.
Wow. So if you're taking 15, what is that? 7,500 if you're taking 15 hours of credit, roughly, on average?
And it doesn't include, obviously, as much or more for room and board on campus.
And how do you pay for, you don't buy textbooks anymore, right, Drake? You buy online stuff?
You still have to buy them.
Oh, I thought it was all digital, but you're buying digital stuff.
Yeah, you're buying digital stuff, or you can.
You can't buy used digital stuff, though, can you?
No, you can't, no. So
that's a shame.
Thank you, technology.
I know. I used to love buying those previously.
Books back, yeah,
previously loved textbooks, right? People were never so thankful as to hand those back in, get a little bit on them. I don't know. There's something about a textbook. I learn better out of a real book than I do online, I think. I don't know. How about you? No?
Well, what I've seen in a lot of college classes is that you buy the textbook along with not part of the course, but some teachers will have like 50% of your grades going to be all of your classwork assignments, which are done through, Pearson, which is a textbook company. And it has the textbook and the tests and all of that.
Yeah, anyone worried about that? Talk about a conflict of interest, right?
Yeah, right.
They control the book and the test. Hello.
That's it.
But don't most textbooks have like mini quizzes like after each chapter is built in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Testing in the workbooks, they used to call them.
Hey, we haven't talked a lot about Second Amendment stuff lately, but I saw this story out of New Jersey. The New Jersey Attorney General is subpoenaing gun dealers for 10 years of Glock buyer records. Think that through. A blanket, now this is apparently, the Attorney General there had a 2025 public nuisance lawsuit against Glock. Like you're going to blame the gun. I mean, this is another one of those same old trope where you blame the gun instead of the person using the gun.
This was a deal, wasn't it, where they said you could put the Glock switch on them way too easily, the 3D printed Glock switch that turned it into a fully automatic weapon, and they were wanting to hold the company responsible for that.
Can't you do the same thing with an AR and a coat hanger? Like you can do that with like any gun. It feels
like the bump stock or something. Is that something?
No, it's
not quite that easy. But this was the big thing with the gangbangers, and they'd put the 3D printed Glock switch on the back, and all of a sudden, unregistered machine gun.
I think it's a slippery slope. You start letting authorities do blanket searches on a targeted group of people that own guns. That just troubles the heck out of me. But what would you expect? It's New Jersey. I mean, that's the Northeastern sentiment.
Well, people were thinking it was actually a productive city for a while, so now they just got to prove them wrong.
I blame Tony Soprano.
Why is it that cities have this insatiable desire for money? I mean, is it just that when you have assemblages of people, the infrastructure and everything is just so darn expensive? That's just part of the reality. The city council in Columbia is going to float this sales tax for police and fire, and that's a noble cause. If you're going to support something, support the police and fire. But why, in general, that's going to put the sales tax at almost 10% for the city of Columbia? Passes. They would be wise to say, "Hey, look, we're gonna have this carved out fund that this will be sacrosanct and it'll be saved for those purposes. But we're going to decrease something here on the other end to try to help, reduce the burden on people. It's not good for people, students who are trying to just, go out for a taco or a hamburger on a Friday or Saturday, right? Or any day during the week. And it's not good for retailers who are going to struggle to continue to do business when, that people have other options that aren't as tax burdensome. So why not have a sequestered fund for the things that are numero uno with your responsibility? I just don't know this. Wow. It's expensive to live in cities, yeah? Well, that wraps it up for this Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. The governor's going to join us at 7:35 tomorrow. Talk about the ballot initiatives and why he chose that. Maybe ask him about some veto line items as well as special session. Yeah, we'll see.
Gas tax.
Yeah, gas tax. See you tomorrow.